There is one door inside the silo that nobody has ever opened. Not because they don't have the key, not because they don't know where it is, but because the people who built the silo made sure no one would ever want to find it. And if that theory is true, then everything we believe about the silo changes instantly. Because the real prison was never made of steel walls. It was made of carefully controlled curiosity. For years, we've believed the biggest mystery was what exists outside the silo. Is the world really dead? Are there other survivors? Can humanity ever return to the surface? But here's what changes everything. Those questions may have been planted on purpose. Look at what the show is actually telling us. Every generation inside the silo becomes obsessed with looking up or looking out. They argue about the outside world. They dream about leaving. They fight over forbidden relics. They risk their lives trying to learn what exists beyond the hill. Yet almost nobody asks a different question. What if the greatest secret isn't outside the silo? What if it's still inside? And this is where it gets darker. Throughout the series, we see locked rooms, sealed vaults, restricted floors, hidden passages, forgotten tunnels, and entire sections of history erased from public memory. Every time someone gets close to forbidden knowledge, they don't simply disappear. Their curiosity disappears with them. That's a very different strategy. Because destroying evidence is easy. Destroying the desire to search for evidence takes generations. And that's exactly what the founders seem to have accomplished. Think about judicial. Most people believe judicial exists to enforce laws. But that's never been its true purpose. Judicial doesn't just punish crime. It manages information. It decides which questions are dangerous, which books survive, which relics are destroyed, which stories become official history, which memories deserve to die. This is the detail everyone missed. If your biggest concern were people escaping the silo, your strongest security would be near the exit. But the strongest control system isn't guarding the outside. It's guarding knowledge. That alone should make us suspicious. Because knowledge is only more dangerous than escape, if knowledge leads somewhere even more important. Now think about Bernard. Bernard knows things almost nobody else does. He has access to classified information, secret technology, hidden surveillance, private conversations, records that entire generations never even knew existed. Yet even Bernard constantly behaves like someone following instructions instead of making decisions. Watch his reactions carefully. Whenever unexpected information appears, he doesn't act like a king protecting his kingdom. He acts like a caretaker protecting something entrusted to him. That's a massive difference. Caretakers don't own the secret. They preserve it, which raises an uncomfortable possibility. Who gave Bernard that responsibility? The founders? A surviving authority? Or something still operating beneath the silo? That sounds impossible, until you notice one strange pattern repeated throughout the story. Every important discovery feels incomplete. Characters find clues, but never the entire answer. They uncover maps, but not the full layout. They recover files, but not every page. They enter hidden rooms, only to discover another locked space beyond them. Every revelation leads to another barrier, almost like someone intentionally designed curiosity as a maze, not a straight path. And that's exactly how psychological containment works. Real prisons rely on walls. Psychological prisons rely on controlled hope. You always believe you're one discovery away from freedom, one secret away from truth, one door away from understanding everything. But somehow, there's always another door, another restriction, another missing piece. The system doesn't stop you from searching. It encourages the search, as long as you never reach the final destination. That's not accidental storytelling. It's a blueprint. Now, let's focus on something even stranger. Whenever characters stumble onto forgotten places, the atmosphere changes immediately. The camera slows down. The sound almost disappears. Conversations become whispers. Even the lighting feels different. Why? Because the show wants us to understand something without saying it aloud. These aren't simply abandoned locations. They're memories. Physical memories. The silo itself remembers what humanity has tried to forget. Every hidden corridor is like a scar left behind by the people who built this world. And scars only exist because something terrible happened. But here's the question nobody asks. If the founders erased history so completely, why leave hidden spaces at all? Why not destroy everything? Unless those places were never abandoned. Unless they were sealed. There's an enormous difference. An abandoned room has no purpose. A sealed room has a future purpose. Look at what the show is actually telling us. Every generation inherits the same structure, the same machines, the same restrictions, the same lies. But they also inherit something else. Locked places nobody fully understands. Places nobody was ever supposed to open. Because maybe the founders weren't hiding from the people inside the silo. Maybe they were hiding something from the future itself. And if that's true, then somewhere beneath everything we've already seen, there is still one final door. Not forgotten. Not lost. Waiting. The most dangerous secret in Silo has never been hidden by a lock. It has been hidden by perspective. Because once you stop asking, what's outside the silo, and start asking, what was never meant to be found inside it, every major event begins to point in the same direction. And this is where it gets darker. Think about how every generation inherits a complete society, but never a complete history. That isn't normal. Civilizations lose knowledge through accidents, wars, and time. But inside the silo, knowledge disappears with surgical precision. Certain books vanish. Certain technologies are forbidden. Certain conversations end before they begin. Entire generations grow up believing there simply isn't anything else to know. That isn't ignorance. That's design. And the people who designed it understood one terrifying truth. People don't need to be chained if they can be taught where not to look. This is the detail everyone missed. Every major character who comes close to the truth follows almost the exact same pattern. First, they discover something that doesn't fit the official story. Then they begin asking questions no one else is asking. Soon after, they find themselves being watched. Not attacked immediately. Watched. That delay matters. Because the system isn't trying to stop curiosity the moment it appears. It's trying to measure it. Almost like someone wants to know how close each person is getting to something much bigger. Look carefully at the hidden surveillance spread throughout the silo. Most viewers assume the cameras exist to maintain order. But that's too simple. If the goal were only law enforcement, why monitor so many conversations that have nothing to do with crime? Why observe private emotions, private relationships, private doubts? Because the real threat isn't violence. The real threat is independent thinking. Notice how often people accidentally discover clues rather than intentionally finding them. A forgotten tunnel, an old hard drive, a hidden relic, a sealed passage. Each discovery feels random. But what if it isn't? What if the founders intentionally left breadcrumbs? Not enough to reveal the truth. Just enough to keep the smartest people moving in carefully controlled directions. At first that sounds impossible. But think about a laboratory maze. The mouse believes it's choosing its own path. In reality, every possible choice was designed before the experiment even began. Now apply that idea to the silo. Every rebellion, every investigation, every forbidden discovery could actually be part of the original design. That completely changes how we see Juliet. Most viewers believe Juliet is breaking the rules. But what if she's following a path someone expected decades before she was born? She's intelligent, curious, resourceful, exactly the type of person the system has always produced. Not by accident, by necessity. Because every prison needs someone willing to test its walls. Without people like Juliet, hidden weaknesses would never be exposed. But here's what changes everything. What if exposing weaknesses was never the danger? What if reaching the final destination was? Notice how every breakthrough seems to end just before absolute truth. A clue leads to another clue. A secret leads to another secret. The answers keep expanding instead of completing. That's incredibly unusual storytelling. Normally, mysteries become smaller over time. In Silo, every answer creates an even larger mystery. That suggests the writers are building towards something that has remained untouched since the beginning. Something so important that every previous mystery exists only to distract us from it. Now, let's talk about the architecture itself. The silo isn't just a shelter. It's a machine. Every floor serves a purpose. Mechanical keeps the heart alive. IT protects information. Judicial protects authority. Supply keeps daily life functioning. Everything has been assigned a role, except for one obvious question. Where is the founder's space? Think about that carefully. The people who designed the greatest survival structure in human history would have needed command centers, planning rooms, emergency protocols, private access routes, decision-making facilities. Where did all of that go? Did it simply disappear? Or has no one ever reached it? This is the detail everyone overlooked. Buildings always reveal the priorities of the people who created them. Hospitals place emergency rooms where they're most accessible. Military bunkers hide command centers deep underground. Data centers protect their core systems behind multiple layers of security. So where's the silo's true core? Surely it isn't Bernard's office. That office feels administrative, not foundational, which means there may still be another level beneath everything we've already seen. Not another ordinary floor. A level that was removed from history itself. A place designed for the founders alone. Imagine what could still exist there. Original records untouched by censorship. Maps showing every silo. Communication systems still connected. Instructions explaining why humanity accepted this prison in the first place. Or, even worse, evidence that the founders never actually left. And this is where the entire theory becomes terrifying. Because if someone or something has been preserving that hidden level all this time, then Bernard isn't protecting the silo. He's protecting the door. Every decision he's made suddenly looks different. Every lie, every execution, every cover-up. None of them were about maintaining order. They were about making sure nobody reached one specific place. Not because opening it would destroy the silo, but because opening it would destroy the story everyone has believed since the very first episode. And if that story collapses, then humanity inside the silo won't just lose its past. It will discover that it has been living exactly where the founders always intended, right beside the truth, without ever realizing there was one final door left unopened. Everything we've uncovered leads to one terrifying possibility. The unopened door isn't protecting the people inside the silo. The people inside the silo are protecting the unopened door. That sounds impossible, until you realize how perfectly the entire system has worked for centuries. Every generation believes it is making its own choices. Some obey, some rebel, some search for relics, some dream about the outside world, some even sacrifice their lives for the truth. But here's what changes everything. No matter how different those people are, they all stay focused on the same questions. Can we leave? Is the outside safe? Who lied about the world? Those questions feel revolutionary. But what if they were never the real questions? Look at what the show is actually telling us. Every major conflict has happened on the founders' terms. The rebellions, the investigations, the discoveries, even the punishments. It's almost as if the founders predicted exactly how human beings would react once they were trapped. Think about human psychology. When someone tells you a door is locked, you immediately want to know what's behind it. But if someone convinces you that the door doesn't even exist, you'll never look for it. That is the greatest trick ever played inside the silo. The founders didn't hide a room. They erased the idea that such a room was ever possible. And this is where it gets darker. Let's go back to Bernard. For 3 seasons, viewers have argued over one simple question. Is Bernard the villain? Or is he trying to save everyone? But maybe both answers are wrong. Maybe Bernard is neither a hero nor a tyrant. Maybe he's the final guardian in a chain that has existed since the first day the silo was sealed. Watch the way he carries information. He rarely reacts with surprise. He reacts with responsibility. When dangerous knowledge appears, he doesn't celebrate it. He doesn't even seem curious. Instead, he acts like someone who has seen the consequences before. Almost as if every generation produces another Bernard, another keeper, another person forced to protect a secret they didn't create. That completely changes his character. He isn't controlling history. He's trapped inside it. And if that's true, then Bernard may be just another prisoner. The only difference is that his prison is knowledge. Juliet, on the other hand, represents the exact opposite. She refuses to accept incomplete answers. Every time someone tells her to stop asking questions, she asks a better one. That's why she keeps moving closer to the truth. Not because she's stronger than everyone else. Because she's willing to question the question itself. Everyone else asks, what happened? Juliet eventually asks, why was I allowed to know this much? That is the moment every conspiracy begins to fall apart. Because truly hidden systems don't fear evidence. They fear pattern recognition. This is the detail everyone missed. Every clue in Silo connects vertically. The deeper the characters go, the closer they come to reality. That's not just physical movement. It's symbolism. The show keeps telling us that truth isn't waiting on the horizon. It's buried underneath history, underneath authority, underneath memory, and perhaps underneath the silo itself. Now imagine the final moments of Season 3. Not a massive battle, not an explosion, not even another journey outside. Imagine Juliet standing in front of a massive steel door unlike anything we've seen before. No warning signs, no identification, no windows. Just a surface that has remained untouched since the founders built the silo. A door everyone walked past. A door hidden not by camouflage, but by centuries of conditioning. She opens it, and behind it, there isn't treasure. There isn't another bunker. There isn't even another level. There is the truth the founders feared more than death. Proof of why the silos were really built. Proof of who has been giving the orders all along. Proof that the history of humanity didn't end with the apocalypse. It was rewritten. Every execution suddenly has a reason. Every erased record becomes understandable. Every forbidden relic becomes part of a single plan. The outside world was only the first distraction. The real secret was always beneath everyone's feet. And suddenly, the title of the series takes on a completely different meaning. A silo stores something valuable. Something meant to survive. We've always assumed the silos were built to preserve people. But what if humanity was never the cargo? What if humanity was the security system? What if millions of lives have spent generations maintaining a secret they were never supposed to understand? That would explain everything. Why history had to be erased. Why information is controlled instead of shared. Why every answer creates another mystery. Why the builders designed a society obsessed with looking outward instead of downward. Because as long as no one opens that final door, the founders' greatest secret remains alive. But here's the question that should haunt every Silo fan. If the builders went to extraordinary lengths to make sure no one would ever open that door, what could possibly be waiting behind it that they believed was even more dangerous than the end of the world?